Late हो गया थोड़ा सा my driver had taken my baby my grandson to the park तो आने में लेट हो गया तो मुझे क्या
मेरे को भी निकालना बेचता रहना तेरा निकल अभी नहीं
She is an actress who has worked extensively with one of our finest directors, Shah Hema, who unfortunately couldn't join us today, though we did expect that he would. A national award winner, she has also acted in television serials, and incidentally I have seen her since she was that big when I was dabbling in theatre myself. And she has won applause for effectively portraying the young Goharjan on stage. May I invite Rajeshri Sachdev Bereshi on stage. And now I'm inviting Aruna, the author herself. Please come on stage. Please sit down. Would you like to read?
Good evening. I'd like to read a section from the preface. Actually, Aruna had asked me to read some other passages, but some of them turned out to be very harrowing to go through, and would have been even more so had I had to read them aloud. And they were personal, so I'd rather let you savor them on your own. But I consider this passage rather important because it's from the preface and it talks about herself. Before I read, I'd also like to share a few things about Aruna, the two experiences I've had working with her. 2 films, in both of which she made me do something that I'd never dreamt would ever happen to me in my life. The first was a film called Sitam, in which Aruna and Vikas were directing jointly, and they came to me and said, you have to play a footballer. And you have to practice football for a month. So football I played as a kid and I love it anyway. So I happily practiced the football, and then they sprang the surprise. When I was well and truly in the movie, that I'd have to do 5 Shammi Kapoor songs as well. If they told me this before I said yes, I might not have accepted the film. Because anyone who's seen Shammi Kapoor perform a song knows there is no one on earth who can do it like him. So, I in fact went to meet Mr. Shammi Kapoor to ask him how he did what he did. And he just sort of laughed it off and said, look, I just loved that music, and I used to listen to it all the time. He said I had a tape recorder in my car and I'd listen to it traveling from town to a studio wherever I had to go, and I just enjoyed it. So just try to enjoy it. try to apply yourself the same way as you applied yourself in a film like Par. And I was astonished to learn he'd actually seen Par. But I did what I could. And then the second movie was Rihai, in which I was to be wooed by Hema ji, which is another thing I thought never happened to me in my life. But it actually did, and I may say it was a great pleasure. It was, in fact, the second time, Hema ji, the third time. Hema ji and I have appeared together in a movie. One was a film called Nargis, which never got released. And the third was Rihai. The first one, even she doesn't know about, was a film called Sapno Ka Saudagar, which was her first film, and I was in the crowd. So Aruna has made me go through two utterly unique experiences in the course of my filming career. So here's the last bit from the preface. For me, it is not possible to separate my life and my personal experiences from the films I make. It doesn't mean that all my films are biographical. I'm interested in life, people, relationships, and sometimes disturbing issues in society. And that's the kind of films I made. However, I chose to make middle cinema or middle-of-the-road cinema as I wanted an audience for my films. I've also seen how I felt alienated from my own self when I made a film to meet the demands of the producer or the market and diluted it into a degree that robbed it of its soul. Such compromises don't work for me, and I decided long ago that I would rather not make a film if there is no artistic freedom. That explains why I made fewer films than I could have. The other reason was that I was working in a male-dominated, sexist industry and did not want to compromise myself as a woman. The lack of artistic freedom is also probably why most of the directors from FTII found it hard to create their films in the commercial atmosphere of Bollywood. There were other reasons too, but she hasn't talked about them. Though the technicians from FTII got absorbed into the industry, even before they had received their diplomas, there were only a handful of directors who found their feet in Bollywood. Stories can be told in various ways, and it is not the plot or even characters, but how a writer or director views it that is central. It's also a very interesting fact, which is not in this book, that the number of Film Institute graduates in Mumbai actually making movies today, a very small percentage is from the direction course. They're either editors or sound engineers or cameramen or even actors who've turned to filmmaking, not the direction students. After my first feature film, as a woman filmmaker, I found myself going against the trend in the male-dominated industry, against the backdrop of where young women found themselves in the 60s and 70s, facing whatever was available in India for them as a future, which wasn't very much. So my struggles have been both professional and personal. After my first feature film, Shak, was released, Sahi Paranjpe, who had been doing theatre and TV, released her first film, Sparsh. Then there was Aparna Sen, who did her first feature film, 36 Choringile, in 1981. And still, for years, there were just a handful of us. And we held our ground for over so many years and made films that we were proud of. Aparna continues to do that, and I admire her immensely. I have been teaching since the 1970s, and most of my girl students veered away from features, preferring to work on ads, documentaries, and television, simply because of the way the industry operated in those days, and also because it was likely to be a long haul. Today there are women directors in every kind of film, and that for me is satisfying. Thankfully, it's not just women filmmakers, but girls from almost all strata of society who have become vocal and in carving out their own space in an unequal society. In spite of heavy commercial demands and catering to the lowest common denominators, some actors not just survived but honed their craft over time. Then there were composers, singers and musicians who kept the spirit and art alive. Asha Bhosle, for one, is someone who again I admire for taking life by the horns and continuing to survive with great gusto all kinds of challenges, never letting it affect her singing, never giving up. For me, the journey has been not just fascinating, but one that is really rich with insights about people's behavior. The change in values over the years and the hypocrisy of the make-believe world of films. I wonder sometimes whether people here in the film world, creative, crazy, hungry for fame and name or unlimited wealth, are living in the real world or acting out their real life characters like in a movie. The tragedy is that their struggles were real, as were their agonies and ecstasies, as many had to compromise on their art, their self-esteem or their personal life in the face of business and box office interests. And I learned compassion as I watched their struggles over the last so many years. Sorry. Looking back, I have been fortunate to have had access to a range of people from the film industry, from the stars to the spot boys, and from the highly creative and intellectual to the pseudos and vendors of flesh. In the end, everyone wanted a piece of the cake, but no matter how much they got, it was never enough. My journey has been a long one, also a very eventful one. There has been no dull moment in my life. My parents gave me the immense wealth of education and independent thought, and I was fortunate also to have access to a world of transformation through the Landmark Forum and through the teachings of Werner Erhard. Whether faced with success or failure, I could remain grounded and work to better myself and make a difference in the world through my conversations, lectures, workshops, or my films, which gave me an unimaginable power to communicate my thoughts and feelings to the world, sometimes to question, sometimes to provoke, sometimes to guide, and sometimes simply to share.
Good evening, friends. I'm extremely happy to be here, especially with Aruna ji today, on her very special day. Freedom, her book is releasing today. For me, she's a very highly talented and a wonderful friend. Her association with me has been for a very long time. First time when she came to me to sign Rihai, those days I was working in many of my, I've done with a lot of commercial films, and I was married and I had both my daughters. And that's the time she came with this offer, and I was very keen to do a different kind of film. And first of all, I wanted to experience how is it to work under a women director, because I have always worked with, mostly it is with a male director, like Ramesh ji and so many others. Wanted to know how it is, and plus it will be shot in some village somewhere in Gujarat. And first thing I asked is, hotel है क्या? होटल नहीं है, वहाँ किसी के घर में रहना पड़ेगा. So we have to share some house. Then I had taken both my daughters, so it was really a lovely experience staying in somebody's house, sharing one room with my kids, and nurse and all sisters had come to take care of my children. And I saw the way, it's not the regular shooting, very, very different. Everyone is ready on the set with the costume. Very simple. And kursi ursi milega baithne ko? Nahi, kursi bhi nahi. And really, there was no chairs, and most of them used to sit on the ground floor में बैठे हैं. ऐसे actor लोग ऐसे इधर ही बैठे हैं. तो मैंने बोला मेरे लिए कुर्सी लेकर आओ. From wherever I stayed, because I was finding it very difficult to sit anywhere, like that. So I'm very sorry, Aruna ji. I'm sharing that today. And at this stage we did a lot of scenes, and it was really beautiful. I kept on watching her, how she's directing. Vinod ji ko kaise direct kar rahe hain. नसरुद्दीन शाह जी को कैसे डायरेक्ट कर रही हैं, बीइंग ए वुमन हाउ शी इज एबल टू कम्युनिकेट, कैसे एक्सप्लेन करेगी, कैसे करेगी। ये सब इसलिए देखा क्योंकि बाद में मुझे भी डायरेक्टर बनने का एक शौक पैदा हो गया था। Having worked in front of the camera, I wanted to be behind the camera and see how is it to direct others. And it is really a wonderful experience. It was directing movie. But I will call her Aruna ji as my Guruji. Because I asked her, अभी डायरेक्शन के लिए तो हाँ बोल दिया है, लेकिन मैं कैसे करूँगी, कैसे शॉट लेना है, I don't know. Then she also said, and I met Gulzar ji also, nothing, you go to the set, automatically the scenes will direct you how to take the shot. And I said, no, still you tell me, कहाँ कैमरा कैसा रखना है, क्या बता दो. So she told me, she drew a few things and showed me. You remember? Yes. So that is, I have kept it still with me. So with that, I started my serial Nupur on dance, on classical Bharatanatyam के ऊपर बनाई थी. That did very well. And then I had the guts to make Dil Ashna Hai also. I would have continued to make many more films as a director, but unfortunately the films I was not able to sell it because we are artists, we are all very artistically involved in the film, but finance part of it we don't look at that at all. So somewhere misfired, so little, not so much keen to do further. Unless somebody else comes and asks me to direct, I am ready. So Rihai was a very wonderful film at that time for me to work. In fact, Dharam ji also said, क्या पिक्चर में तुमने किया है, बहुत बातें हो रही है इसके बारे में, Say नहीं बहुत nice film, नहीं क्या रोल है तुम्हारा? नहीं बहुत अच्छा सा रोल है, बहुत बढ़िया काम किया ना. She is very wonderful director, she has done it so well. So आप देखिए, ये नहीं बोला. But I'm sure you would have seen it. But it's such a lovely film, and still it is one of my best film, I'll say, because so beautifully directed by her. And this book is going to be very, very hot, I'm sure. Lot of informations, lot of your experience you have given in this book, which will be very, very useful to many of the young artists and upcoming directors who wants to come as women. Also, so many people will experience this book, and it is very necessary for people like Aruna ji and all to come out and write their own experiences. It is necessary to know how hardship it is, how much she has gone through in various fields, right from the beginning. Just now that she read the book, it was so nice to know so many things. And after Rihai, I don't know why she has not made many more films. I'm still waiting. So you should make, you are so talented. So I pray to God that you continue to make this kind of movies, many different ones. Today's time, we need a director like you. So I pray to God, and God bless. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hema. That was a lovely, lovely speech from the heart. We have another creative giant among us, and I'm going to invite him to come on stage. He's someone who has created cinematic history with his movies. Everyone knows Sholay, and we have the director of Sholay, Sita Aur Geeta, Shan and Sagar, the director of one of the most unforgettable television serials, Bunyad. I invite Ramesh Sippy ji to please come and share his thoughts.
Good evening. while I was listening to all these people, I had actually requested Aruna ji that I speak last. Not because I wanted to have the last word, please. That was not the reason. Because I have been the least close to her amongst all of you here. So I thought while you guys speak, I will pick up some refrains and be able to say something better. I actually have come to know Aruna very recently only. Closely, I mean, we've met over the years and always to do with films, of course. I'm very happy to be here that now that her book, Freedom, My Story, is out, and even the book I shall read. I'll probably start tonight, because already from the passages I've heard Naseer Saab and Aruna herself, and there she is. Yes, all those passages, very, very lovely. And I know it's very difficult for a man to understand how difficult it is for a woman to deal with the world, and especially in films. It has never been easy. Things are changing, but even now, if we see the figures, compare them to a number of real makers and real people working in the important positions, except you can't have anybody but a woman playing the leading lady. So that's their natural place, but they can be everywhere. They are beginning to be, but it will still take time. But the change is definitely happening, which is the good thing. And the films of the last few years also say, as I think in all the 50 years of my experience in cinema, I have seen changes happening, very slow, very gradual, but today we have reached that point where the recognition is quite strong, and I think, except for the fact that the business end of things is still not as confident with women directors, the business community. Actually, I don't see any reason why women should not be making more films. They are in the West. It's tough there as well. But Aruna has shown from her life so wonderfully that she fights. She fights with her life. She fights in her personal life. She fights to do her work with dignity and tell her stories the way she wants to tell them. And she does have this very wonderful balance of making something which is viewable by a much larger audience than films of this genre. I think it's not easy to make very good. I will not call them parallel or art cinema at all. I think there are good films and there are not so good films. Even in, so whichever words we want to use for it, good cinema is good cinema. If we want to create it, today a film like Dangal has run, there's no romance, there's no music. So it breaks all commercial kind of barriers and does the biggest business until a Mahabali comes along, and that's history. But so Aruna and her kind of films are what real cinema should be about. Everything else is, everything will have its importance. But Aruna, whatever you've been doing, please keep doing. And I hope and pray we will continue to always see your good work. And pretty soon, after reading your book, I shall say something more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rameshji. I must also share this wonderful thought that came to me when I was watching both of you on stage, that both of them are HarperCollins authors. We've got them signed on. And I'm hoping, Mr. Shah, we can tempt you to do something else for us besides your wonderful biography, which I enjoyed reading. It's time for the launch, for the moment we've all been waiting for. Aruna ji, will you come on stage? Rajeshwari, please come on stage. Mr. Naseeruddin, please come on stage. The inevitable photo op. I always worry about packing, as if it never has to be opened. Yes. There's a prize for the one who opens it fast.
Not fair.
Okay, there's a prize for the one who opens it last.
Something in life I can't do. All right, finally.
Freedom.